I think you have to look at who were these people, and why did they do what they did? These people were not an invention of Donald Trump. These people exist in the States. He just enabled them. Listen, I got to the States in 2003 when the most outrageous rhetoric was Bill O'Reilly on Fox. And the divisions grew ever since. You remember the Tea Party? They disappeared. But when Obama left office, the Americans were saying, now we're going to get our country back. What do you think that means? So these divisions existed and these groups existed in the United States. All Donald Trump did was ignite it.
But it was a frightening thing, and it reminds me how fragile democracy can be. We all remember what happened in the rise of Adolf Hitler. This was very similar. A leader who lied and incited people to violence and played to people's prejudices and the bigotry of the American people. And this is all in every society. There are bigots and racists, but it's the leaders who ignite this and incite people to do this. And that is Trump has done. He's created a beast, and that we're going to see the end of Donald Trump in power. But of course, that menace is going to be out there trying to stoke all kinds of violence and incitement against the Biden regime and to divide American society. So this is a long way from being over.
But I agree with Bob. This is not over. These people exist. 70 million people voted for Donald Trump. They're not going to stay quiet now. They found their voice, and I'm afraid that Joe Biden will hear their voice in his first term.
And the state of the affairs really has been that we've got a U.S. that is deeply divided, and we can't forget that the Republicans did very well this election. They kept the Senate, flipped seats, have a higher percentage vote in many of what's called the swing states. I mean, the Republican Party is perhaps stronger than ever before, and Donald Trump is the reason for that. We cannot forget that Donald Trump's brought out the vote perhaps in ways that Republicans have not been able to empower their base. Therefore, what we have is Donald Trump is here to stay. I mean, whether we like it or not, Donald Trump is here to stay, to impact and probably likely try to run in 2024.
You know, for all the reasons that Nigan described, there's a huge constituency of people who believe very firmly in what the president laid out last night, even though, as I said, there is no proof of it. That's a big challenge for Joe Biden if he's in fact, successful and becomes the president to face off against.
That's one of the things that sort of come out of this. The stereotype that was made about Donald Trump, some of it quite worthy, was that uneducated white guys were going out and voting for him a lot. That sort of got destroyed as well. We have to acknowledge the fact that there are less white guys that went out and voted for him this time than in 2016, and that it was actually non-white and people that you would think wouldn't vote for him. That is to say, the gay community, etc. People amongst the gay community going out and voting for him more so than in 2016, which is completely antithetical in my mind. I don't quite understand. The other thing I would say, too, is that, we're in a situation now that there is not as much trust in the underpinnings of the American democracy. And that has a lot to do with Donald Trump. And yes, Mr. Biden, if he wins as expected, is going to be the next president, but it's going to be a hell of a hangover to get over that.
Yeah, I just feel like, Vicky, the challenge is a big one, right?
It is a big challenge for Joe Biden, but I think it's also a big challenge for this Congress, because where you see some of those messages coming out or coming from are social media messages. And while, Joe Biden can say his speech and it'll go live to every national broadcaster, there are people who will completely miss what he has had to say, and we'll see a version of it, whether it's skewed or in any way manipulated on social media, on Facebook, on TikTok, on Twitter, and it will have no relationship whatsoever to the truth. And so I think there is going to be, ideally at some point, a conversation about how the internet giants have handled politics for the last several years and how they've interacted with vast efforts at misinformation, and whether or not politicians are willing to corral that. But I think, as has been pointed out, there's still such a division inside America and still within the political infrastructures that we're talking about, that whether or not that conversation will happen and whether it'll happen effectively, I think remains to be seen. I think, Republicans are definitely seeing that misinformation has come to their benefit in some places. You do have conspiracy theorists who ran under the Republican banner who are now going to sit in Congress. And so I think that is a concern for Joe Biden. I think it's a different time and a different era to be president. And what being presidential means at this time is incredibly challenging and requires a depth of thought that I hope that his team has thought about.